Welcome to the Teachers Talkin' podcast, hosted by Dustin and Ghazali Abdul Wahab. In this podcast, we discuss all things education and teaching, from innovative teaching methods to challenges to strategies and much, much more. In this discussion or roundtable-based podcast, we bring in educators from all around the world to talk about a variety of education topics so that we can support as many teachers as possible. We want this to be a place of inspiration, personal and professional development, and simply a place where we can elevate education together. Welcome to Teachers Talkin'. Hey everybody, welcome to season 3 of Teachers Talkin'. I am Dustin, as always, here with my co-host Ghazali, and today we are going to dig in to one of the most important moments in the life of a teacher, which is the start of the school year. So what does it actually look like to start the year strong? And I'm talking beyond just bulletin boards and icebreakers. So we're going to be sharing some of our own stories from early days in the classroom and experiences that we have had, what we've seen work and what we've seen not work, as well as how to build routines and relationships that last. So let's kick it off. Ghazali, why don't we start with you? What's one back to school moment that you're never going to forget, whether it was for better or for worse?
Oh, that's a good one. Back to school moments. Well, for me, it's seeing my students again after being away for a month or two, and then seeing them again, and they've changed because they've gone on holidays. Some of them have take part-time jobs or done some hiking, exploring, taken up a hobby, and getting to find out what they did, and getting that really builds the teacher student relationship. That's one of the things that I always look forward to, because they always have a lot of great stories to tell, and I just love hearing their stories. Then I'll share some of mine. Like my trips to where did I go? I've been to Dubai, Tasmania, even next door to Malaysia, and the food that I've eaten, and the kilos that I've gained, and how I'm trying to work it off, and how it never comes off. And yeah, I mean, those are just the fun stories that we tell each other. We don't start with lessons. We always start with telling each other what we've been doing, and to get back into the groove of things. Yeah. What about
Yeah.
you?
I'm curious, like you and I have both been in education for a really long time. And I'll tell you, like, for me, I thought that I was over this, but apparently not. Almost every year that I've been teaching, I've
Mhm.
thrown up on the first day of school.
What? Every year
I
now?
can't explain. Yeah. The last 2 years when I was doing some other things and I was teaching kind of part-time, it didn't happen. But now that I'm back into a full-time gig, this year it happened to me again. And I was just like, what? And I don't know what it is. It's not like bad nerves or anything like that, but I think I get amped up for the start of school years. And so something for me every year, it's just almost without fail, like I think I'm good, and then like right before I'll walk out the door or just as I'm getting ready, like blah. But I'm curious, you said that, like, coming back and sharing stories about like what have you done and what I've done and this and that. But is there any, since you've been doing this for so long, is there any particular year or any particular story or any particular start that really like started the year off on like a really positive note or a really negative note? Have you ever had a start to a school year that was just like a really chaotic start, or have they always all been smooth? Like, is there anything that
No.
stands out to you?
It has
No.
never been always. It has never been smooth. It never becomes smooth. It just feels smoother, but it's never smooth. You know what I mean? Yeah. So okay. here's one. There was a year when I was coming back to school, and we're doing the same thing, and we're sharing all the things that we did as a family, where we went, what are the interesting things we did, and the hobbies we took up. But like one kid said that I didn't do anything because my parents were going through a divorce, and that
Mm,
just killed the mood. And that's
yeah.
where, as a teacher, you need to know how to um, turn on a switch, or flip, or that's when it becomes a teachable moment, and you tell the class, you see, not everybody is as lucky as us. Some people go through troubles, some people go through challenges while we are out having fun and doing things with our family. So we need to spare a thought for those who don't have the luxury of doing those things. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually got the class bonded together, and it was very cool, very nice when at the end of the day everybody penned something, a nice note, and gave it to the person. Yeah, so
That's
it was
beautiful.
a touching
I
moment.
think
Yeah.
that's such an important point too. We don't know like what our kids go through when they're away from school. So we don't know what's happening to them when they're gone on summer break or winter break or whatever break it might be. We don't know which kids are able to celebrate holidays and which ones can't because they can't afford it. We don't know which ones are,
Yep.
have family to spend time with and which ones don't have any family, or who's constantly working while others don't have to work at all. Like everybody is having such different experiences. I think about that really strongly, not just at the start of the year, but coming back from winter break, because I've become very conscious of not being like, what did how were your holidays? What did you get for Christmas? Like things like that, because there's
Yeah.
so many kids that come back and they didn't get anything, not because they don't celebrate, but because their families can't afford it. Or, there was tragedy that happened during that break or whatever. And it's like, we just never know. So you're right. Like that's such a powerful moment. I'm so glad that something like that was able to bring the class together. Like tragedy was able to bring a class together at the beginning of the year to be able to bond and start to form a community.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that you always throw up at the beginning of the year when you first start your teaching season. So why do you think there's so much pressure on teachers to get the beginning of the year just right? That it can even elicit this kind of response from you.
Yeah, I think, one, there's a lot of excitement, but then two, there's also always pressure that comes when school starts because school itself is a pressure cooker, right? Um, I even think about how even going into day one, I look at the school calendar, there's we started on a Wednesday, but already by the first Tuesday of the year, our kids are taking a pre-test for the year. And in the second full week of school, they're taking a reading exam.
Oh my
And
God.
on the third week of school, they're already taking a skills check exam, right? So, like the pressure that comes with sort of testing and pacing of teaching standards and things like that, I think it hits people right away. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where a lot of the pressure comes. You spend however long, every school is a little bit different, and like how long you have to plan and even how much time your admin team gives you to plan and to set up your classroom and all of that. So there's a lot of pressure that comes along with just the start of the year in that sense. And then there's also a lot of pressure, I think, that comes in the sense of like having your room where you want it to be, being organized, being ready to welcome students, having a welcoming and warm classroom environment. I know one of the things that my team did the night before the first day of school was we walked all the classrooms, and we wanted to make sure that the classrooms were student ready, that they looked nice. And I'll tell you, the school that I'm at right now, I've seen some of the most amazing classrooms. There's a classroom that's like a science classroom that's Harry Potter themed, and it has like
Oh,
It has decorations outside the door, but then when you go in, it's got like hanging, like it looks like floating candles, and like the Gryffindor and Slytherin and Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff flags are flying on the wall. And it's really cool. In another classroom, it's a bunch of like STEM presentations are set up. Another classroom is set up around like a coffee bar. And the whole theming in the classroom is like you walked into a Starbucks, and like the whole routines and procedures that that teacher was even doing were all connected to like being in a coffee bar. And
Wow.
so it just, I'm really amazed by the creativity that teachers put into their classrooms, but there's a lot of pressure in
Yeah.
welcoming your students into a classroom, getting to know students for the first time. I think that all of those things lead people to feel like I need to get this right. You know, how do you see that? You know, is that the same kind of pressure that you see in Singapore that I see here?
Yeah. I mean, it's not so much place. I think it's also experience wise. I remember when I first started teaching, I just had to get the first day of school right, because it's like a superstition or something like that. You know that if I don't get it right, it may lead to a chain of events that just destroys the whole year. So you have that
Mm-hmm.
sort of mentality. But now, after
Mm-hmm.
teaching for so long, I have this phrase I just say: if it's a bad day, it's just one of those days. Tomorrow will be different. Yeah,
Yeah.
and normally that's what happens. You know, you have one day that is not so great, and then after that you have a series of good days. You know, I mean, teaching life is like that. You know, you can't
Yep.
have good days every day. So that's how I manage it. I just say, okay, today's a bad day. Tomorrow must be a great one.
Yeah, I
Something good's
think,
gonna
you know,
happen.
I was totally just telling a teacher, you know, tomorrow is another day.
Yeah,
And so it's
it
important, I
is.
think, one, and this, whether this is at the start of the year or any point in the year, right? We are going to have good days and bad days. That's a part of life, and that's most certainly a part of
Mm.
school. But I think at the end of the day, no day is ever fully bad. So can you find the one little win? It doesn't matter what it was, right? The one student that made you smile, or the one class period that went better than the rest, or you know, the fact that you took a 30-minute lunch on your own and it reset you for the second half of your day. Anything, right? You find those little wins, and you should always try to end the day with those wins, and let go of what didn't go right. We always have the opportunity of resetting and doing things over again to make things better. And I think part of that pressure at the beginning of the year, people think, oh my God, I messed up on day one and now it is going to be a chain reaction. It's only going to be a chain reaction if you don't make an adjustment from that
Yeah,
day or from that moment.
totally agree.
And I think that that actually leads me to wondering, you know, we talk about how the start of the year, it's really important, not only just to like welcome your students and start to build those relationships and a community in the classroom, but you do that with routines and procedures and expectations, right? And so we hear
Yep,
a lot that routines and procedures are everything. I
yep.
do believe that they are very foundational. If you don't have strong routines, procedures, and expectations, then learning can't happen. It's like, you students have to know, they have to know Maslow before they can bloom. I think I saw a post that said that recently. And I was like, I really like that because I talk about that a lot. If you don't have the basic necessities of life, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you don't have
Needs.
those things first, then you can't operate at high levels of learning, which is blooms. So,
Yep.
with that being said, what, in your opinion, would you say is what makes routines actually work?
Okay, so this is what I've discovered for myself. Routines work when, firstly, they have to be consistent, right?
Mm,
You have to do it consistently over time. It takes practice. Students need to get used to it. You need to get used to it. Okay, and because students need to get used to it, second thing, the routines with routines is they have to be clear. So there's
mm,
no point giving really complicated set of instructions if your students are not going to be able to understand what is required of them. So it has to be
Mm-hmm.
clear. And perhaps most importantly, the routines have to be meaningful to the students. They have to make sense. Yeah. So if they don't make sense, then the students will be questioning the routines, and it's harder to get the routines to stick. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not just about having a set of steps, right? It's about teaching them explicitly, practicing them with students, and then
Yep.
reinforcing them until they become second nature. So
Yeah.
a routine clicks when students understand why it matters, right? For example, how it helps them learn, how it makes them feel safe, or even save time. So there's a purpose and there's a reason why we enforce those routines, and the students need to know that. Don't assume that they know. Sometimes they don't. So we have to tell them why. And when the
Mm-hmm.
teacher models it right at the same time, that reinforces things, because then they start expecting it to happen every day. But remember this, flexibility is also important, because if a routine is not working, then you need to adjust it instead of
Yep.
just forcing it and forcing it and forcing it. There's a reason why it's not working. Find out why, and then
Yep.
adjust. Yeah.
Yep. It's
What about you?
interesting that you say it's interesting you say all that because our priority for the first month and a half or so of school is around what we call CCC, clear,
Mm,
consistent,
mm.
connected.
Yeah.
And you mentioned all of those things, right?
Yep.
It starts even from the way you welcome students into your classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Having that strong start at the threshold of the doorway, welcoming your students in, telling them what they should expect as they walk through the door. So, like for us, you start with a warm up or a do now activity. So it's like I'm standing at the door. Well, I'm not, I'm a coach now, but as a teacher, and the things I coach my teachers to do, right, is to be at the door, welcoming your students. Hey,
Right.
welcome. How you doing? Make sure you pick up your do now on your way in and get started to work. The more I say that, the more that it starts to build that habit within the students. And when that bell rings and you walk in the door and close it, I grab the students' attention. I tell them I need them at a level 0. And at this time, they have X amount of time to complete the do now assignment while I take attendance, and they should be working at a level 0. And I think being clear, very clear with those directions, we're working on what to do directions where you are extremely explicitly clear with what you want your students to do. I was talking to my AP yesterday where we were saying, saying things to students like all eyes on me is a troublesome type of phrase, because if you're saying you want all eyes on you, are you actually expecting, if you've got 30 kids, 60 pairs of eyes to be on you at all times? And does that actually indicate that they're with you and paying attention, right? I like the idea of you should be tracking me,
Mm.
or if we say I want to see pencils down, and you're going to wait for every single person to put a pencil down. Like, at what point do you actually need students to have nothing in their hand versus when you do want them to have something in their hand? So like that clear, those are just really simple, examples of what it means to be clear, but like also knowing what do you really want out of your kids? And if you
Yep.
don't need something, then don't say that you need it, right? And so I think knowing those very clear what to do directions is really important in starting to set those routines. But otherwise, the consistency. I think what I see when I see classrooms that become chaotic, it's not because a teacher doesn't have routines or expectations. It's because they simply don't hold to them. If all you're going to
Yep.
do is warn students over and over and over not to do something, they're going to keep doing the behavior. And I think to go along with that, it's also being very purposeful in what those responses to expectations are, because it shouldn't be about punitive. It should be about building. So I think all of those are part of building community and culture in your classroom.
Yep. Very true. And talking about building community and culture, it's all also about building relationships, right?
Mm.
So what does this relationship building looks like to you in the first 2 weeks of school, when school first starts?
I think relationship building is one of the most foundational parts. It goes right along with those routines and procedures because it's about building habits and building the respect, safety, and care in the classroom. And you can only do that by building relationships. So I think it's really important in those first couple of days to, let students get to know you and for you to get to know your students and for students to get to know one another. Um, I actually saw recently, so I've done some things like escape room games or survival type activities, right? Which forces students to have to like collaborate in groups and it really gets us like talking. So I like things like that. Would you rather activities are great for the first couple of days of school so that, you could just, it's fun and interactive. I saw a video recently of a teacher who was basically doing like a speed dating. And the whole idea was that over the course of the period, every single student would have a one-on-one conversation with every other student in the classroom. And so there was a bunch of prompts at the table, and you would have X amount of minutes to have a conversation about that prompt with your partner. And then they would switch prompts around and switch partners. And that's how students were starting to build community and get to know each other. And I thought that that was a super cool thing. And so I think, that's kind of the beginning of building those relationships. But then as you start to move away from the opening year, setting up routines and doing these initial relationship buildings, and you start to get into the actual content piece, now it becomes about how you facilitate participation in the classroom. How do you make sure that every voice matters and that every voice is being heard? And that to me it goes back to routines, because I believe that if you're having, let's say, whole group discussion, because there's ways of getting kids to talk to one another, right? You can do turn and talks and you can do small groups and you can do all those things, and you should. And then there's also times in which you're doing whole group discussion and conversation. So especially, really, I think about this, I'm in a high school, but this matters, I think, no matter what level you're at. And to me, there are 3 ways that you can have whole class discussion. You can either cold call on students, you can take volunteers to participate, or you can just have an open discussion where people can just freely speak. The problem with being able to just freely speak, like we pretty much just do in society, even mostly at the college level, is being able to know when to jump in, when to step back, when to shut your mouth, all those social cues that we're
Yeah.
still trying to build in students. And so I think when you want to have whole group discussions, one of your routines should be to be very explicit with what your participation expectations are. You have to name for your students that after this, I'm going to cold call on 3 to 5 people, or I'm going to be
Mhm.
looking for 3 to 5 people to respond. We're going to start with volunteers. And if I'm not getting volunteers, I'm going to cold call on some people. Like, set your expectation up right from the beginning.
Yeah.
Or during this particular conversation, I'm inviting you to just speak out. We don't need to raise our hands. We're just here to have a conversation. I think naming that type of participation also goes a really big way in starting to build that community in the classroom. How about for you? What are some things that you've done, and how do you go about building relationships at the start of the year?
For me, it's the things I like to do, icebreakers. Yes. So fun things. Yeah. So that's why I was quite surprised that you had all those tests and exams in the first few weeks of school. We don't touch any of those. It's more of like building connections, building relationships. So for example, a simple activity, that I like to do is the what I call the me in a bag activity. So basically what students do is I ask them to take out 1 or 2 items from their bag that they have with them anyway, and say how those things represent who they are, how they're
Mm,
feeling, their values, or even how it represents them as a person. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a very fun activity because they have so many things in their bag. So you'll be surprised and shocked at what they pull out of there. Yeah. So and it becomes a really fun, engaging activity. Yeah. So I've seen in primary schools, for younger kids, before they step into a classroom, like they line up outside the class, and the
Mm-hmm.
teacher actually has like a menu or a poster outside the classroom where the students get to choose what they get before they enter the class. So it could be
Mm-hmm.
simple things like one of the picture could be a picture of a hand and high five. So for
Mm-hmm.
that day, maybe they felt they need to be they want to be reaffirmed. So they just tap on that sign and then the teacher will give them a high five. Then
Mm-hmm.
another one, maybe it's just smile. So when they tap on that, then the teacher will smile at them, and it could be a hug, it could be a praise, it could be anything. Yeah, so simple things like that. That
Fist
was
bump.
I found. Yeah, fist bump. I find
Yep.
that really amazing and wonderful. It's a great way to start a lesson, don't you think so?
Yeah, and I've seen where people do that and then they end up with like special handshakes with different students and things like that. And I think
Yeah, I
it's
do
that
that. Yeah,
welcoming piece. Yeah, it's that welcoming piece of bringing them from hallway into classroom and setting that positive tone right from the get-go.
definitely. I agree fully. Yeah, setting right
So
tone.
we're talking about a lot of different things, from pressure to building relationships to setting up those strong routines right from the get-go, which then makes me wonder, here I am going into Labor Day weekend, so we're 2.5 weeks into school, and people are
Awesome.
already excited about having their first 3-day weekend, right? And only
Yeah,
2.5 weeks in. So
yeah.
why do you think so many teachers hit that wall just a couple
Oh,
weeks into school, and like, what do we do to go about setting a different pace for ourselves so that we don't feel you know overwhelmed just as the year is getting started?
good question. I think one of the main reason is adrenaline crash. Because the first few days you're so powered up, you're so fueled by the excitement of school starting. You going to your classroom and seeing your students again, and then like you mentioned all the nervous energy, right? But once all that fades, right, and then the workload starts kicking in, that's when your emotional weight really hits you. Yeah, and
Hmm.
and the work keeps piling up after that. So that's when it really hits you hard, and you start to feel burnout because you're trying to cope. Yeah, after that initial high. So it's like caffeine. After the initial high, you get a deep crash. Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the things that add to this, I guess, is also the unrealistic pacing. So many teachers try to do everything right away. They want to do the decor, they want to set the routines, they want to do the content pacing, they have to set the assessments, yeah,
Hmm.
without leaving breathing room. So that will lead to burnout as well. And of course,
Hmm.
we were talking about setting routines, but be mindful, routines can cause burnout as well, because routines, if you don't practice them deeply and they don't become a habit, teachers end up reteaching expectations again and again and again, and this can actually feel very draining. So that's that part of the equation, which is the emotional labor, that constantly giving to your students,
Yeah.
so to build the relationship and to set the classroom management, to communicate with parents. So if you don't balance all these things out, right, it will lead to burnout. And just a final thing, imagine all this happening, and the actual job of being a teacher, which can also feel like a solo act sometimes. You're alone, right? You feel alone because you're in the classroom. It's just you and your class. So if you don't have peer support, it's easy for all these things to quickly become overwhelming. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I think everything that you said. And there's a point in which you have to create balance for yourself.
Yep.
And that's something that I'm stressing to my team of teachers right now. I've been very transparent and I said, "Hey, just FYI, if you email me on the weekend, I am not going to see it. I don't take my laptop home with me. I'm not trying to work on the weekend. However, if you need something and it's important, it's an emergency, you really need me to see something before Monday, shoot me a text and let me know, hey, I shot you this email. I could really use a response before Monday. I will take care of it. But I don't want that to be a habit because I don't want my teachers working on the weekends either. And so part of what I'm working towards with my team in helping to try to prevent from hitting that wall early is planning out. So my teachers actually have to turn in their lesson plans for a week at a time, where I get an opportunity of reviewing what they're doing and offering any feedback so that they can make any adjustments before they do it in the classroom, right? And part of that is, one, to give good feedback so that teachers can be at their best, and two, to help people get planned out, because 20 years I've been doing this, and the teachers who I see planning day to day and week to week are the ones who burn out the fastest, and the ones who I see planning a little bit ahead are the ones that I see maintaining their balance. And what that means is, to some respect, putting a little extra work in on the front end, whether that's at the very start of the school year, whether that was during summer, because for some people that's how they use some of their summertime, is to get a jump start onto the year. So with my team right now, what they're doing is they're turning in lesson plans on like a Wednesday for the following week. Well, that means by the time I give them feedback on Thursday, they now only have Friday or the weekend to make any types of adjustments. And I don't like that, right? I don't want my teachers going home and working on the weekend to make adjustments. So what I'm starting to work with them on is that we're getting to a point where in a couple of weeks, when they turn in their Wednesday plan, it will actually be a 2-week outlook.
Nice.
That first time, which will automatically put my entire team 1 week ahead. And that's all you really need, is that 1 week ahead, because then every Wednesday you're planning another week, but that week that you're planning is already 2 weeks away, and that, I think, is how I started to build capacity in like planning out longer, because the further out I planned, I would get a point where I was like, oh, I'm like 3 weeks ahead, and I could stop and I could take a break for a week if I want to, or I can continue on my cadence. And the next thing I knew, I was planning so far out in advance that I got to a point in the school year where there was no more planning.
Yeah.
I think that's what you want to be working towards. I mean, and also when you're planned ahead, you're not going home on a weekend and feeling like, oh my God, I'm not ready for Monday. Like you're already setting yourself up for success. You're not going to hit that Sunday, that scary Sundays.
Yeah.
And so I think to not hit that wall, it's everything you said. It's the balance in not doing everything at once. It's being consistent in building habits, both for yourself and your students. And it's planning ahead so that you're not doing things day to day or week to week. And I think, and that's just in my own personality, is if I was coming in and I didn't know what I was teaching for a day, I would pull my hair out. Like I wouldn't be able to function. And I hated the times in my career where I was getting to a Sunday and I didn't feel prepared for Monday.
Yeah.
Because then I didn't sleep on Sunday night, like I started Monday in a bad mood or what have you. And when I go into the weekend already knowing that I'm ready for Monday, I'm setting myself up for more success. And then my Mondays don't start off on a bad foot.
Yeah. That's true. Definitely. Yeah. So
I mean, when you think about that too, I'm curious, like, what do you do at the start of the year to set yourself up for the long haul? Because I'm talking about like, that's how I plan. What do you do?
Oh, for me, I like the way that you plan ahead, right? So you plan ahead and prepare like a week in advance and all this. My method is I look back. So I guess you combine these two methods, you got it all covered. So basically, I look back at the year before and I see where are the points, what are my weaknesses, which period of the year was the most strenuous, stressful, and then I prepare for it. So I look back in order to look ahead. Yeah. So that's
Mm-hmm.
more my method. And of course, what issues I faced last year, I try not to face again this year, either by making myself better, working on my weaknesses to strengthen it, going for courses to repair whatever weaknesses I have, and to help me cope with what's coming. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we
I
put those two
assume,
together.
yeah, I assume that when you do that sort of look back reflection, you're not
Yeah.
doing that at the start of the school year, are you? Or you're doing it before the school year begins? Or are you doing
Continuously,
it at the start?
con- uh, continuously in the sense that when I look at in like let's say a few weeks before school starts, then I do the reflection for when school is going to begin. And
Mm-hmm.
then after that, when school has started, I do a reflection of what went well, what could be improved further,
Mm-hmm.
and then what do I have to get ready for in the following month? Let's say
Yeah.
what happened last year in that month that can help me prepare for this coming month. Yeah.
So you're
So it's a
thinking not
cycle.
even just about specific students or any, right? You're even thinking during this month, it was a really rough month for me. What
Yeah.
made that month rough? Or
Yeah.
my period 4 is always tough because I've already taught 3 periods of the day and I'm tired by period 4 and the kids are tired by period 4. So what do I do to make sure I'm re-energized midway through the day? Things like that.
Yeah, like this term, like I told you earlier, I was feeling very hectic. This is our third term here in
Okay.
Singapore, and I'm feeling very hectic because all the exams are coming in, the markings coming in, the setting of papers, assessment papers all come in, and then your very short deadlines. So I've already jotted it down somewhere in my teacher's notebook, just to tell myself next year, make sure this doesn't happen. In the sense that
Mm,
don't feel this constraint, stress, burdened. Yeah, be prepared for term 3. You're gonna
yeah.
get hit by assessments. You're gonna get hit by marking. You're gonna get hit by a lot of duties that you will have to perform. Try to get as much of these done before term 3, which means you
Mhm.
don't waste your midterm break. Your midterm break really needs to look forward to the term 3 ahead. It's not
Yeah.
a total holiday. Yeah, in that sense.
Yeah. I'm thinking like in the US, March becomes a really dark period for teachers because there's a very long period in a lot of places, like a good 6+ weeks in a row where there's no time off, where there's no, Monday holiday or, any kind of break. And that
Yeah.
seems to be the time of year where most teachers like spiral and take a nosedive.
Take note of that.
Well, thank you. So like I appreciate you saying that because like now it's saying, okay, yeah, it's almost September. And how can I start thinking about that period of the year
Yeah.
earlier so that I'm not feeling overwhelmed and burned out during that period where I only have my weekends off,
Yeah.
which can be
Yeah.
really rough.
Yeah. You can. Yeah. So you get ready now for when that period happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And trust me, when you look at it with foresight, there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do, so much you can prepare right now so that when that period hits, you have things ready to go, you know,
Mhm.
to help you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Love
So
that.
I guess with all this experience that we bring to the table, if I think it's an interesting exercise, looking back and asking questions and reflecting. If you could go back and tell your first year teacher self one thing about starting the year strong, right? What
Yeah.
would it be?
I mean, no doubt it would be having very clear routines, procedures, expectations, and responses, and being consistent with them, explicitly teaching them and practicing them and being consistent with them. Like, hands down, I look back on my early years of teaching, and I just didn't know. No, you don't get prepared to do that in teacher programs. You don't know what it's like to like truly step into a classroom for the first time, or like to be with kids until you actually are. Even student teaching experiences can't really prepare you for what it's like to be in your own classroom for the first time. And so I think it's being really well planned out, and it's giving yourself grace. Nothing in teaching is perfect. Very rarely does any lesson go perfectly according to plan. And so knowing that, I would go back and tell myself, like, hey, you're going to put in a lot of work, and sometimes your stuff is going to, your kids are going to hate it. They're not going to be engaged, whatever that might be. It's okay. It's okay. There's going to be another day. You're going to know what your kids like and don't like, and you're going to figure it out. So give yourself grace. I think that's one of the biggest things as a first-year teacher, is how easy it is to become overwhelmed with the expectations, with the relationship building, with the organization, with the time management. There's so much that goes into teaching that it's hard to be fully prepared. And so giving yourself that grace, I think, is also really, really critical. So that's what I would tell myself. Strong routines and procedures and expectations with consistency, and give yourself the grace to reflect, to know it's okay, to breathe, and that not everything is going to go perfectly. How about for
Nice.
you? What would you tell your first year self?
Wow, everything you just said. And I would say to my first year self, it's very, very important to know that students don't need you to be perfect. They need you to be present.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's okay. Like you mentioned, it's okay. You'll make mistakes. Your lessons will flop. The best
Mm-hmm.
teachers' lessons have flopped before, and that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. You learn from them, right? So um, the kids are not going to care that your lessons flopped. What matters is that kids see you showing up every day with care, with energy, and belief in them, right? So strength at the start of the year isn't about going 100%, using all your willpower to do your best and not make mistake. No, it's all about this. It's all about the heart and the persistence, and of course it's about building relationships with your students. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. Beautiful. So as we start to close this out, what would you say is one reminder, or maybe even a mantra, that you think every teacher could carry into their first week back?
Wow. Okay, a simple one. You can't pour from an empty cup. Everybody's heard that, right? But it's so, so important.
Yep.
Protect your energy so that you can give your best to your students. Yeah, that's key.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think mine would be reflect. Take some time at the end of every week. And if you can, even at the end of each day, like, you don't need more than 5 or 10 minutes to reflect on your day or reflect on your week. And when I talk about reflecting, I'm not, so many times people just reflect on what didn't go well. I want to push people to reflect on what did go well. What was good about your day? Even in the most chaotic days, there are bright spots.
Yep.
Find those bright spots and build off of those.
Yeah.
Something we're talking a lot about right now is we don't want to tell our students what we don't want them to do. We want to tell them what we do want them to do. And I think
Mhm.
about that for the adults as well. If you're building off of the good things that happened instead of being focused on the negatives, you're going to create a better experience for yourself and your students,
Yeah.
because it sets you in a better mindset. And if we live in that negative mindset, that fixed mindset, that's how we'll spiral. That's where we'll hit the wall much faster.
Yeah. Agree.
Well, it's wonderful to be back for season 3 with you, Ghazali. So thanks for this first conversation and so
It's
many
good to
more.
be back.
It is so good to be back. And to all of our listeners, thank you once again for coming back and hanging out with us, whether you're a new teacher, a veteran teacher, or you're somewhere in between. We are here wishing you a meaningful, connected, wonderful start to your school year. And would love to hear from our listeners. What are your go-to moves for starting strong? So, remember to subscribe, to rate, to share, to comment on our posts and on the podcast. Remember to keep listening wherever you're at and however you can. Share the podcast with the other educators that you work with. And if you would like to be a guest on Teachers Talkin', we are always happy to be talking to guests. I guess as a little preview for season 3, we're going to have a lot more balance of conversations that are just Ghazali and I, as well as with new guests and former guests. And so now that we're here in season 3, we're going to start bringing some of our previous guests on to have conversations and see where are they at today, a year and a half, 2 years later. So we're really excited about all the things that we have coming. Lots of topics coming up this season for you guys. Lots of strategies, lots of stories. So we're really excited. But yeah, if you're interested in coming on and chatting with us, remember, you don't need to be an expert in anything. You just need to be ready and willing to talk about your educational experiences and share stories with others. So once again, thanks for listening to Teachers Talkin'. We'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye bye.